Alright guys, how you doing? It's Rabea, I hope you're all well. So this video is brought to you in association with the wonderful people at Boss. This is a sponsored video, and in this video we're going to be checking out the Boss GT-1000 guitar effects processor. I'm sure we're all very familiar with the whole sort of multi-effects processing floorboard unit that you can get on the market now. There's plenty of people making them. You know, you've got the Line 6 Helix, you've got the Head Rush, you've got obviously the Axe FX8 and all that kind of stuff. So here is Boss's amalgamation of that kind of product, and this is the GT-1000. Of course, Boss is no stranger to floor effects boards. I remember ages ago when I was into Rage Against the Machine, back in the day when I first sort of discovered them, and I'd just been playing guitar a year or so, and I was amazed with all the effects Tom Morello was doing. And I remember back then the Boss ME50 had just come out. I don't know if you remember that one. It was like a sort of lighter coloured metallic blue pedal, and I was gobsmacked. I was like, I can get all the Tom Morello sounds on this effects board. I was amazed. So, you know, and obviously Boss have been around for ages doing effects. So it's you know, it's about time they came out with something that kind of fits into the same category as these other contenders that are on the market right now. So you may be interested in Boss's GT-1000. As you know, Boss make the Katana amplifier and the Katana Artist amplifier, and the cool thing about those amps are the sort of the feel of them, the response of them. They feel quite authentic. I really enjoy using the Katana 212 combo when we do the Soundlight videos. And something that they really spent a lot of time on was the feel and the response, and they've tried to implement that kind of thing into the GT-1000. What I mean by that is, of course, with things like Helix and the Axe FX stuff and obviously Kemper and everything like that, we're taking models of amplifiers and cabinets, putting them together and then building your own sort of signal chain. Well, with the GT-1000, they've tried to make that a bit easier for the customer by basically creating something called Augmented Impulse Response Dynamics, which is written across the top of the pedal board. And what it basically means is, rather than modelling just an amp and then a cab and then, you know, everything that goes in between that, they've modelled the entire amp. So what I mean by that is the amplifier, the cabinet, so you don't get to choose and mix and match between different amps and cabs. It's kind of like the whole model goes from the beginning of the signal from your guitar in to the way it comes out, and they've tried to model that whole thing so that it feels really authentic. That's what they told me, and I've had a little go on it, and the feel is really good. So we'll check that out in a bit and see what you think. Of course, like any Boss floorboard unit, it comes absolutely filled to the brim with effects, all the famous Boss effects you can imagine, all the different stomp boxes they do, you know, your reverbs, delays, modulations, compressors, fuzzes, you know, all that stuff is inside the GT-1000. And one of the nice things about it is the display. The way they've made the display means you can sort of design out your signal chain all the way through to the end. You've got two different outputs. You've got sub output and main output, so you can send those to different places. For example, if you're gigging, you can have your sub output, which is your XLR outs, going to front of house, and then you could run your main outputs to a powered speaker on stage for yourself. You can do 4 cable method. It's got 2 effects loops on the back, 8 cable method in fact. And of course it's got a couple of extra expression pedal outs on there, so you've got extra control as well. It wouldn't be Boss if you can't go into every single last parameter of every single feature and edit it if you want to. That's something that I think Boss are quite unique for. Is, do you have an idea? Yes, we can help you. So in this video you're just going to be hearing exclusively the left and right out of the GT-1000 into my Universal Audio Apollo interface. And we're just going to go over a couple of tones. I'll show you how the whole signal path works and a couple of editing features. So hopefully this won't be a mammoth long video, but in any case, let's get right into it. So I've got my Washburn N4 because I just restrung it, put a new Floyd on. Don't know if you saw that video, but loving it. And I thought we'd start on Bank 1 preset 1, which is Premium Drive. It's a decent sound. It's going to demonstrate the sort of amp tones. Then we can dive into this preset and I can show you how it was set up and if we wanted to alter it and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, this is straight in. This is Premium Drive, straight in on bridge pickup. So let's jump into the functionality really fast. I've got a GoPro set up so you can see what's going on. Now you can see the layout obviously is very reminiscent of all the other sort of floorboard units out, and it's, you know, it's more of a sleek, they're kind of taken that MS3 brushed aluminium design, made the screen bigger, made it a little bit more user friendly, coloured LED lights and such, as you can see. So of course you can control your banks here. You've got 3 different control switches that can be assigned to do any function you want them to do. They've kind of made sure that 3 is your tuner, just so you don't lose the opportunity to tune your guitar mid-song, which is good. And then of course you've got, on one bank, you've got 5 different presets, and then you move up a bank. And they're all kind of based around a similar thing, utilising the signal chain, adding and taking away things depending on what it is. So that's cool. And then you've got these 6 dials on the top row, just underneath the display, and they're sort of the front panel of the amplifier, so to speak. So you can see we've got gain, bass, treble, but you can also control the beats per minute. If you've got any kind of delay or it's MIDI clocked or anything like that. An overall patch master volume. And of course you can change which patch you're on to edit by using the first knob here. So it's really straightforward, but like I say, this is mainly set up for front of amp sort of vibes. You can also use the page keys to change what you're looking at on the screen, so you can see the layout here, exactly what's happening, sort of in terms of the effects and the patches of each button and what they do. So at the moment you've got these 3 control buttons. You can see control 1 controls the channel select. I will dive into that in a moment. Control 2 controls a delay that you can turn on and off. Control 3 is of course your tuner. It's all fairly easy to use, straightforward. It's nothing you don't know already. So next up I'm going to breeze over the signal chain and how it looks when you start editing patches. So if I jump ahead and press effect, we've opened up the signal chain display, and I think it's really obvious what it is. You can see the start through to the end, and of course these 6 dials along the bottom control different parameters depending on what you've got selected. So it's always worth pointing out that number 6 is what selects and moves the cursor along the chain. I do have one small functionality gripe, but hopefully they can fix it with an update. It can't be that hard. Essentially, number 6 here, this select move button, if you scroll it, it's going to take you across to different parts of the signal chain. But if you want to move any one of these, it says underneath SCL and then /MOV, which means select or move. So you'd think when you press it down, it's going to move to move, so you can literally click it, pick up the item you want, move it around the signal chain, but it doesn't. So you can scroll, but when you press it and try and scroll, all it does is turn them on and off. If you want to move it, you have to press and then turn. So you can see EQ1 is now going to move to the right, and you have to press and move. And it's a little bit annoying because it's kind of hard to put pressure on the button and spin it. It's a tiny thing, it's just when you're editing and you're in the mode, sometimes you mess up, and it's something quite easy that could be helped. In any case, it's worth pointing out that as I'm sat on EQ1 right now, it's worth showing you what these page buttons do. So along the bottom you can see the dials control what type of EQ this is and the parameters involved in that. So at the minute we're on parametric, can change it to graphic if I want, and so on. And then, you know, dials 2, 3 and 4 control different parameters, and then the page button moves to a new page of parameters of that particular stomp box effect, EQ, whatever it is, and you can basically scroll through, customize as you wish, and then you're good to go. So let's start with the signal chain. All the way over on the left you can see guitar comes in, we hit a compressor, and we move to a volume pedal, and now we hit our first division. So we've currently got 2 amp models running here, and there are 2 things to point out. Firstly, we can run 1, 2 or both at the same time, do a dual amp setup if we want to, but also we can say what we want this particular division to do. So if I scroll to it, you can see it's currently moving between channel selects A and B, like that, but also we can change the mode to single or dual. So if I scroll it to the right, now it's both signal chains in one go, and then of course you can choose priority of what you're going to hear more of, so on and so forth, dynamic, and filter, so you can put high pass, low pass on one if you want, if you just want. It's, you know, starting to get already quite in depth on the customizability. And then you can see we've got our amp set up, so if I move it along we've also got a noise suppressor, but this is the amp. So we're currently in X high gain, and then you can see you can control things like gain, sag, resonance, level, move a different page. You've got your EQ and your presence, and then of course you can assign a solo switch to this, so you can have a solo boost in volume, all that kind of stuff. You can carry on scrolling through, and then we've got all our different types of effects. So you can see you've got EQs 1 and 2. You've even got, well, you've actually got 4 EQs you can use. And as I move along, you can see 4 different delays, and then a master delay. In case you needed more delay, they've made sure there is an abundance of such. Moving on, you can see the different effects, choruses, flanges, phasers, just everything, tremolos, whatever. Reverb, which is all the different types of reverb that Boss do. And then we get to links. So you can actually move these along. So if I grab one and I move it along to my dual amp setup, I can branch off now into a completely different part of one signal chain. The cool thing about that is you could add a separate loop to just one of the amps. So if you're running a dual amp setup and you wanted to toggle on one amp's own effects loop with one of those links that's got its own choruses and reverbs and everything, you can assign that to a control switch and just have that come on and off when you need it to, which is, it's just more flexibility, being able to simulate those kind of rigs, you know, stereo rigs with their own dedicated effects loops. It's mental. So this next bit is really important because I'm going to show you how you can assign the outputs to create a stereo rig if you wanted to. We're currently hearing one amp coming on the main output, which is left and right, so the hard panned, but I'm going to then change what amp you hear on the right or the left, so on and so forth. So this is important. So as you can see on the display, we've got M and S. That stands for main and sub, left and right outputs. So you've got 2 dedicated outputs, which is really cool. And of course you can now change them with the parameters. So I could, this is currently stereo linked, and then if I go off, it becomes ML and MR, which is main, left and right. Let's just link them again for now. But one thing that's worth pointing out is if I scroll along with the page button, not only is it our output, it's essentially our speaker cabinet. So basically what it means is that at the minute, main output left and right is like 2 speakers in a 2x12, and you've got control over 2 microphones that are on those speakers. So you could have left with a 57 EQ'd a certain way, like 2 centimeters from the center, and then you could have right being something completely different and blend the 2 together. Alternatively, you could have a stereo rig with 2 separate mics going on. So think about it like output is your cabinet. It's probably easier to look at it that way. So we'll go back to our display. As you can see, main is still currently set to stereo link, so I'm going to turn that off. Now we've got control over left and right. If I now click and drag all the way along my signal chain, main left on the top row, and I'm going to put main right on the bottom row. So now what that's going to do is it's going to spit out 1 amp on the left and 1 amp on the right, and just for the sake of it, I'm going to change what you hear on this side. So currently what you're going to hear on the left hand side, because we haven't linked them up yet, is just the new amplifier that I've added, which is X modded. Sounds good. And then if we, because this patch is still currently set up so that control 1 flips between one side and the other, if I just hit control 1 on, now we're going to hear the other side, so on the right hand side, and this is our sort of X high gain sound. Okay, I'm happy with that. So if I now scroll back to the first link in the signal chain, which is, as you can see at the very start, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to scroll to dual. So what you're going to hear now is both the X modded and the X high gain at the same time. Which is wicked, because now you can create stereo amp rigs and basically do whatever you want. And of course, within that, you can add as many effects or anything that you want. So if we go back to our signal chain, you can see at the minute we've got DS1, DS2, and then we've got 2 noise suppressors in there. And you've got your amp head and your speaker cab. But if I wanted to then add delay in here, let me just grab delay 1. You want to make sure you put it between the amp head and the speaker cabinet so that you don't put delay in front and it sounds weird. But essentially, if I turn one on, you'll be able to hear it come out the right. Yep. If I turn on two, and just change the timing of it so that we don't get all complicated. Now you can hear stereo. So obviously that was a terrible example of beautiful sounding stereo delays, but you get the idea. Conceptually, you can move any block onto each amp side, and when you split the outputs, make sure you split the outputs and put them on each line. Gives you stereo amp, stereo effects, stereo everything, and it's great. So what I want to do right now is quickly breeze over how you can assign different functions to the foot switches, and then beyond that it's just customizability to the nth degree. So we want to hit menu. In menu you can see the sub menus. You can scroll through the different sub menus with page, but we want to go to control assign, then we want to go to control function, and it brings open this table that looks pretty intense, but it's really not that bad. So dial 1 controls the row that you're on, page will select through the different pages, and then of course dials 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 control the parameters, or what it is, the value of each row, if that makes sense. So I'm looking at control 1, which is this button here, and I can see at the minute I'm on the function row. So if I twizzle number 4, you can see it's changing what it is it's doing. If it's a bit hard to read, click it down and it brings up in this big window here. So at the minute we can see it's changing which line of signal path we're going into. So that means your left side or your right side currently. But let's change it for the sake of it. I'm going to move this to, let's try an effect. I'm going to turn on a chorus. Okay, there's chorus. Now I hit it. You can see it's under the function control 1. So let's exit now. So when I hit control 1, we should hear some chorus. And that's how we assign different functions to the switches. Of course, it could be anything. You can get the expression pedal to be a wah or a volume pedal. It could do whatever you want. And of course, even with external stuff, you can plug an external control switch into this and it can be controlled. You can set what you want it to do, provided you use a TRS jack lead. And it becomes a whole different ball game of customizability. So that kind of covers the kind of functionality overview and a bit of, you know, what you can do with this pedal. Of course, it's worth saying you could use it for your effects and use your own amp drives if you wanted to do that too. But what I wanted to dive into just a little bit was some of the presets, because of course it comes loaded with them, so we may as well try them out. So let's have a look. heard a few presets and it does have all sorts of stuff going on for it. And they're all pretty interesting sounds. Some are usable, some immediately usable, and some that would need some tweaking, in my opinion. We've landed on one called Crystal Clouds. This is what it sounds like. What I wanted to do is just take a look at the signal chain to see what's going on, so you can see how other patches are designed when it comes to designing your own. Let's go over to Effect and let's see what we got running. So we only really got one amp side going on here. We've got noise suppression, we've got chorus, reverb and a master delay. And that's how we're getting these sounds. So we've got a shimmer reverb. It looks like there is sort of a ramping thing going on here so that it sort of swells in, the cloud reverb, so to speak. But that's set with looks like a 30 millisecond pre-delay, which is where that sort of ramp in is coming from. We've got dual chorus, and our delay is a dual delay in series, and that's what's creating this sound. So as you can see, it's fairly straightforward. When you're looking at the signal chain, it's really easy to just map out what it is you want to happen. What do you want things to happen before the amp, after the amp, in between the amp and the cab? What kind of effects, if you're using delay and reverb, do you want them to take on all that gain and give you that? Or do you want them to just sort of echo out in a nice sort of effects loop style way, softer, less intense? So you put them in between the amp and the cab, so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, outside of building these presets, as I said, you've got control of assignability of any of these switches to do secondary functions. You've got an expression pedal, you can plug in another two if you wanted to. You've got two effects loops, you can plug in external effects if you've got specific fuzzes or other different effects that you really like the sound of that you can't leave home without. You can use it as an 8-cable method. It's also got the librarian editor, as all the other Boss products do. You plug it into USB, design all your patches in your computer, load them on, back it up, all that kind of stuff. So it's meant to be a throw in the bag with all your presets, turn up at a gig and just play what you need to play and do what you need to do. So I see this being quite a popular piece of gear for the guys that are doing sessions, traveling a lot, and they want something affordable, sophisticated, customizable, with a decent sound quality and response. As I said, the A.I.R.D or augmented impulse response dynamic definitely gets the feel there. So yeah, that's basically a quick overview of the GT-1000 from Boss. So if you want to pick up a GT-1000 from Boss, they're about 849 quid. You can pick them up from Anderton's, which is my preferred retailer, or, well, I'll put a link in the description box below and you can have a look for yourself. It's definitely, I mean, you know what you're in for when you're buying a product like this, if you know anything about these other floor effects units going out there. And of course, if you know anything about Boss, they've been doing this for years and years and years and years, and they know their stuff, they know what works. They want to make sure you've got every area covered. If you're a real pedal nerd, really geeking out, or you're someone that just wants to plug and play, just go for it, then this can cater for that, essentially. So I mean, it's definitely a contender in the world of floor effects processors if what you just need is good amp modeling and some good effects at your feet. Nice and portable, lightweight as well. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know what you think in the comment section below if you've got any questions, and I'll put links in the description box. But until next time, I've been Rabea, and I will see you all very soon.